The galaxy had never been kind to humanity. For years, the Selvoran Empire had spread like a disease, conquering world after world, crushing every species that stood in their way. Their warships were massive, their technology far more advanced. When they turned their eyes toward humanity, most thought the war would last only a few weeks. They were wrong. Humanity fought harder than anyone expected. They refused to kneel, refused to surrender. Even as their colonies burned, as their fleets fell apart, they kept fighting. But now, the end was near. The last free human colony, Eden Prime, was surrounded. The enemy fleet blocked every escape route. Their defenses were nearly gone. Admiral Jack Morrison stood on the bridge of the U.S. Resolute, staring at the massive enemy armada on the screen. His face was calm, but his hands were clenched into fists. The Selvoran fleet outnumbered them 10-1. The enemy ships were massive, with armor so thick the human weapons barely scratched them. The humans had one last fleet, small, damaged, and running out of ammunition. And yet, Jack refused to give up. "Admiral, incoming transmission from the enemy," said Commander Hayes, his second in command. Jack sighed. "Put it through." The screen flickered, and the image of High Lord Vorax appeared. The Selvoran warlord was tall, his red eyes filled with amusement. He wore dark armor, covered in medals from conquered worlds. "Admiral Morrison," Vorax said with a smirk, "I will give you one final chance. Surrender your forces, kneel before the Selvoran Empire, and your people will be allowed to live as slaves." Jack's expression didn't change. He had expected this. "And if we refuse?" he asked. Vorax chuckled. "Then we will burn your colony to the ground. We will erase your people from history, just like we did to the Dralakor, the Fenrir, the Zolaris. They all resisted. And now, they are gone." Jack looked around at his officers. Tired faces, determined eyes. These were the last defenders of humanity. There was no surrender, no retreat. Slowly, Jack leaned forward. "I hope you're ready, Vorax," he said, "because we're not going down without a fight." The Selvoran warlord laughed. "A fight? You are outnumbered, outgunned. You have nothing left." Jack smiled, a cold, knowing smile. "That's what you think." Then he cut the transmission. Alarms blared. The enemy fleet was moving into attack formation. Thousands of warships, their weapons glowing with deadly energy. The sky above Eden Prime turned red as Selvoran battleships descended. Jack took a deep breath. It was time. "Open a channel to all ships," he ordered. A second later, his voice was broadcast across the entire human fleet. "This is Admiral Jack Morrison. We are humanity's last defenders. We stand here, not just for Eden Prime, but for every world that Selvorans have destroyed. They think we are weak. They think we are broken." He paused, looking at the enemy fleet closing in. "They are wrong. We are humanity. We never surrender. And today, we show them what that means." The fleet roared in response. Every pilot, every soldier, every officer, ready to fight until the very end. "Launch all fighters," Jack commanded. "Prepare for close combat." Hundreds of human starships shot forward, engines burning bright. They were smaller, weaker than the Selvoran ships, but they were faster, smarter, more determined. The battle had begun. The void exploded with fire. Human ships weaved through the chaos, dodging enemy fire, striking weak points in the Selvoran armor. The enemy had power, but humanity had speed and strategy. A squadron of human fighters darted between the massive warships, releasing torpedoes at close range. Boom! An enemy cruiser erupted into flames. But the Selvorans were ruthless. Their larger ships unleashed devastating plasma cannons. One shot could wipe out an entire human battleship. The U.S. Valiant, one of the last remaining destroyers, took a direct hit. It exploded in a blinding fireball. "Damn it," Commander Hayes shouted. Jack gritted his teeth. They were losing ships too fast. He turned to the comms officer. "Is the signal ready?" "Almost, sir." Jack took a deep breath. "Hold the line. Just a little longer." The battle raged on. Human ships fought desperately, but the enemy was overwhelming them. Eden Prime's defenses were failing. Vorax watched from his flagship, smiling. This war was over. Then something changed. His sensors glitched. New signals appeared. Strange, unidentified ships. Ghost ships. "What is this?" Vorax growled. His officers panicked. Hundreds of new ships appeared out of nowhere. Silent. Deadly. Then a voice echoed across all channels. "Humanity does not needle." Initiating counterattack. Vorax's smile disappeared. The ultimate fleet had arrived. Vorax watched in disbelief as his fleet's scanners flickered with strange signals. Ships that shouldn't exist were appearing in the darkness beyond the battlefield, silent and unreadable. He turned to his officers, his voice sharp with irritation. "What are those ships?" But no one had an answer. The Voran Empire had spent decades studying humanity's technology, and yet these ships were something else. Their shapes were sleek, their hulls absorbed all light, and their weapons burned brighter than anything the Empire had ever faced. They moved like shadows, striking from nowhere, then vanishing before enemy guns could fire back. On the bridge of the U.S. Resolute, Admiral Jack Morrison watched the chaos unfold with a cold, satisfied expression. The ultimate fleet had arrived. The Vorans thought humanity had fought with everything they had. They thought this was humanity's last stand. They had no idea that this fleet had been waiting, hidden, for this exact moment. Jack had known, for years, that humanity couldn't win a war against the Voran Empire through sheer numbers or brute force. So instead, they had built something different, a fleet beyond anything the galaxy had seen before. Ships made from the most advanced human technology, enhanced by secrets stolen from fallen alien empires. Weapons designed not for survival, but for vengeance. The Voran fleet quickly realized something was wrong. Their massive battleships, once nearly invincible, were falling apart. Their thick armor, which had withstood countless wars, was being torn open as if it were paper. The new human warships didn't just fire energy weapons. They used pulse disruptors, which shut down enemy shields before the real attack even landed. Then came the kinetic railguns, projectiles moving at near-light speed, punching through hulls like a spear through flesh. One after another, Voran ships exploded in fireballs, their crews never even getting the chance to fight back. Panic spread through the enemy ranks. Voran captains shouted over the comms, begging for orders. Some tried to flee, but the ultimate fleet had already cut off their escape. Every time an enemy ship turned, another human warship appeared in its path, waiting like a predator cornering its prey. The Vorans were no longer the hunters. They were the hunted. High Lord Vorax clenched his fists, his confident smirk replaced with a deep, burning rage. "How is this possible?" he growled. His empire had never lost a battle like this, never faced an enemy they couldn't crush. And yet, here they were, being slaughtered. Jack Morrison stood firm as the battle reports came in. One by one, enemy ships were being wiped out. The very empire that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries was now facing its worst nightmare. "Push forward," Jack ordered, his voice calm, controlled. No mercy. This wasn't just a battle anymore. It was humanity's revenge. The battlefields of space became a graveyard of burning wreckage. Voran soldiers, once proud conquerors, now screamed in fear as their ships were torn apart. Their weapons did nothing against the ultimate fleet. Their tactics, once feared across the stars, meant nothing now. This wasn't a war. It was a reckoning. On the bridge of his flagship, Vorax could feel it. Defeat. The impossible had happened. The great Voran Empire was losing. For the first time, he tasted fear. He had always thought humanity was weak. But now, as his empire's fleet burned around him, he realized the truth. They had never understood humanity at all. The battlefield was no longer a war zone. It was a massacre. Zelvoran warships, once symbols of terror across the galaxy, burned like dying stars. The wreckage of their fleet drifted through space, silent proof that the tide had turned. The ultimate fleet moved like ghosts, striking with impossible speed and precision. Every shot they fired hit its mark. Every maneuver outpaced the enemy. The Zelvorans had no defense. They had spent centuries believing they were untouchable. But now, they were facing an enemy they couldn't understand. An enemy that had been waiting for this moment. Admiral Jack Morrison stood on the bridge of the U.S. Resolute, watching the chaos unfold. His crew cheered as more Zelvoran ships were torn apart. But Jack wasn't celebrating yet. This battle was only the beginning. The Zelvorans weren't just one fleet. They were an empire. And that empire would soon realize what had happened here. They would send reinforcements. This war wasn't over. Not yet. Jack turned to his second-in-command, Commander Hayes. "Status report," he ordered. Hayes scanned the battlefield, eyes sharp. Enemy forces are in full retreat, but their flagship, the Vengeance, is still operational. Vorax is still on board. Jack narrowed his eyes. Vorax, the warlord who had led the destruction of human colonies, the one who had laughed as he offered humanity the honor of being slaves. He was still alive. Jack had no intention of letting him escape. "Target the Vengeance," Jack said coldly. "We end this now." The ultimate fleet responded instantly. Dozens of warships locked onto the enemy flagship, their weapons charging for the final strike. But Vorax was no fool. He saw what was happening and acted fast. The Vengeance suddenly vanished. 1 second it was there. The next, it was gone. They activated a jump drive. Hayes shouted, "They're escaping." Jack clenched his jaw. Coward. He had wanted to see Vorax fall with his empire's fleet, to watch the warlord's arrogance shatter as his ship was destroyed. But Vorax had done what all tyrants did when the fight turned against them. He ran. The Vengeance had retreated, but Jack knew this wasn't over. The Zelvoran Empire wasn't going to forget this day. They would return. And next time, they wouldn't underestimate humanity. For now, the battlefield was silent. The last remaining Zelvoran ships had either been destroyed or had fallen into the void. The human fleet held position over Eden Prime, victorious, but the cost had been high. Wreckage from both sides floated through space. Even with the power of the ultimate fleet, many human warships had fallen in the fight. Brave men and women had given their lives to ensure humanity's survival. And the war was far from over. Jack exhaled slowly. "Send a message to Earth," he said. "Tell them we won. But the real war is just beginning." Across the galaxy, the Zelvoran Empire would soon learn the truth. Humanity was not weak. Humanity was not broken. And now, humanity was coming for them. The silence after the battle felt unnatural. Just hours ago, the battlefield had been filled with fire and destruction. Now, only wreckage remained, floating tombs of Zelvoran warships. But Admiral Jack Morrison knew better than to celebrate. This was only the first fight. The war was far from over. The bridge of the U.S. Resolute was tense. The crew was victorious, but they weren't fools. The Zelvoran Empire wouldn't just let this defeat go unanswered. They would come back, and they would come back with everything they had. Jack turned to Commander Hayes. "What's the status on the fleet?" Hayes studied the reports. "We took some losses, but the majority of our forces are still intact. We have damage across multiple ships, but nothing critical. Our engineers are already making repairs." She hesitated. "Sir, there's something else. We picked up a distress call from a nearby system, Valyria 7. The Zelvorans have already launched a counterattack." Jack's expression darkened. "So it begins. The Vorens weren't wasting time. They had lost this battle, but they were already striking somewhere else. He clenched his fist. The Empire wasn't just fighting for revenge. They were trying to prove that this victory meant nothing. That no matter how hard humanity fought, the Vorens would always come back stronger. Set a course for Valyria 7, Jack ordered. We're not giving them another victory. The Resolute and the rest of the Ultimate Fleet jumped into faster-than-light travel, heading straight for the next battlefield. As they traveled, Jack stood alone in his quarters, staring at a holographic map of the galaxy. The Voren Empire was vast, their forces spread across countless worlds. If humanity wanted to win this war, they couldn't just defend themselves. They had to strike back. Hard. The ship's alarms blared. Arrival at Valyria 7. Jack rushed to the bridge, already expecting the worst. But when they exited FTL, what they saw was beyond anything they had imagined. Valyria 7 was burning. Voren warships filled the skies, raining destruction upon the human colony below. Buildings collapsed. People ran in terror, and massive alien walkers marched through the streets, executing civilians on sight. This wasn't just an invasion, it was a message, a warning to humanity that resistance would only bring suffering. Jack's blood ran cold. He had seen war before, but this was slaughter. The Vorens weren't here to conquer. They were here to erase Valyria 7 from existence. Sir, orders? Hayes asked, her voice tight with anger. Jack's jaw clenched. There was no hesitation in his mind. Deploy the fleet. Wipe them out. The battle began instantly. Human warships ripped into the enemy ranks with precision and fury. The Vorens, caught in the middle of their massacre, weren't prepared for the sudden counterattack. Their ships exploded as the Ultimate Fleet pushed forward, unstoppable. On the ground, human drop pods slammed into the surface, releasing elite strike teams that charged into the streets, fighting to save whoever was left. Jack's heart pounded as he watched the chaos. This wasn't just about war anymore. This was personal. Humanity wasn't just fighting for survival. They were fighting for justice. The Vorens thought they could break humanity's spirit. They thought fear would keep them in control. They were wrong. Very wrong. The streets of Valyria 7 were a nightmare. Smoke filled the air, and the stench of burning metal and flesh mixed with the cries of the wounded. Voren soldiers, tall and armored in their gleaming war gear, stalked the ruins, hunting down any remaining survivors. This wasn't a battle anymore. It was genocide. The Vorens weren't here to conquer. They were here to erase this colony from existence. But then the sky split open. From the burning clouds above, human dropships descended like meteors. Doors slammed open before they even hit the ground, and outpoured the elite soldiers of the Ultimate Fleet. Clad in advanced armor, their weapons humming with deadly energy, they hit the ground running. They weren't here to fight a war. They were here to finish one. Commander Hayes led the charge, her rifle firing in short, controlled bursts. Every shot dropped an enemy where they stood. Her soldiers followed, moving with precision and fury. The Vorens, so used to fear and obedience, had never seen humans fight like this before. They had never seen rage like this before. The Vorens turned their weapons on the new arrivals. But they were too slow, too unprepared. The human soldiers moved like shadows, dodging plasma bolts, using the wreckage as cover, striking with brutal efficiency. In less than 5 minutes, the Voren front line had collapsed. From orbit, Admiral Jack Morrison watched the battle unfold. His fleet had crushed the Voren warships in space, and now his soldiers were wiping them out on the ground. But he wasn't satisfied. He knew this wasn't just another skirmish. This was a message. "Sir," an officer called out, "the enemy command center has been located. It's underground, beneath the capital city ruins." Jack nodded. "Send in the Helljumpers." Within seconds, another wave of drop pods rained down from the sky, humanity's deadliest warriors. They smashed into the ground, emerging like demons, weapons roaring to life. The Vorens inside their command bunker barely had time to react before the first explosions tore through their defenses. Inside the bunker, Voren Commander Verilos watched his soldiers die like insects. He had always believed humans were weak, that they would never be a true threat to the Empire. But now he knew the truth. Humanity had been underestimated. Their rage, their fury, it burned brighter than any empire's might. A massive explosion rocked the bunker doors. Sparks flew. Smoke filled the air. Then the doors blew apart, and the Helljumpers stepped through, weapons raised, eyes burning with vengeance. Commander Verilos had only a moment to understand his mistake. And then, he never thought again. As the last of the Voren forces were wiped out, Jack Morrison gave the order. Secure the city. Save whoever we can. The battle for Valyria 7 was over. Humanity had won. But Jack knew this wasn't the end. The Voren Empire wouldn't forget this defeat. They would come back, stronger, angrier. But now, humanity was ready. The fires of Valyria 7 still burned, casting an eerie glow over the shattered city. Smoke curled into the sky, mixing with the dust of fallen buildings. The Voren forces had been eliminated, their war machines reduced to scrap, their command structure shattered. But victory had come at a cost. The streets were littered with bodies, human and alien alike. The survivors, those who had hidden during the massacre, emerged slowly, their faces filled with fear, grief, and something else. Hope. For the first time since the war began, they saw the Vorens retreat. For the first time, they saw humans not just surviving, but winning. Admiral Jack Morrison stood on the ruined command tower, his gaze sweeping across the battlefield. His people had fought like demons, turning the tide of war in a single brutal assault. But he knew this wasn't over. The Vorens wouldn't let this stand. They had underestimated humanity once. They wouldn't make that mistake again. A transmission came through. Commander Hayes' voice was steady, but Jack could hear the tension beneath it. "Sir, we intercepted a distress signal. The Vorens sent a message before we wiped them out." Jack exhaled sharply. Of course they did. "Destination?" he asked. There was a brief silence. Then Hayes answered, "The Imperial Throne World." Jack's fingers curled into fists. The message had gone straight to the Voren High Command. The Empire's rulers, the ones who had ordered the slaughter of human colonies, the ones who had enslaved entire worlds, now knew what had happened here. And they would respond. A second transmission came through. This time, it was from one of their deep space reconnaissance teams. The signal was urgent, desperate. "Fleet Command, this is Recon 12. We have visual confirmation of enemy fleet mobilization. Repeat, the Voren Grand Armada is moving." Jack felt a chill run down his spine. He turned toward the holographic map. Red markers, enemy forces, began appearing everywhere. Entire fleets were assembling. Warships the size of cities, dreadnoughts that had ruled the galaxy unchallenged for centuries, all moving toward human space. The Vorens weren't just sending a counterattack. They were preparing for total war. Jack straightened, his expression hardening. This was it. The final battle was coming. Humanity had shown its strength. Now, the Vorens were bringing everything they had to crush them once and for all. But what the Empire didn't understand was one simple truth. Humanity had never feared impossible odds. Humanity had never backed down. Jack's voice was steady as he gave the order. "Alert the fleet. Recall all forces. Tell every soldier, every pilot, every last fighter in human space. We are taking this war to them." You said. Part 7. The stars burned bright as humanity's fleet assembled. Thousands of warships, battle-ready and armed to the teeth, gathered in formation. The Voren Grand Armada was coming. the largest force ever assembled by the Empire. The galaxy had never seen a battle like this before. Admiral Jack Morrison stood on the bridge of the U.S. Resolute, his expression like steel. Around him, his officers worked in tense silence, watching the sensors. The XL Voran fleet was approaching, an endless wave of warships stretching beyond the scanner's range. The Empire was throwing everything at them: dreadnoughts, battleships, planetary assault carriers, and swarms of fighter craft. The XL Vorans weren't just trying to win. They were trying to erase humanity from existence. Jack turned to Commander Hayes. "Status." She exhaled. "They outnumber us 10-1. Their ships are stronger. Their fleet is larger." She paused, then looked him straight in the eyes. "But they don't have what we have." Jack gave a grim smile. "No, they don't. Because this wasn't just about firepower. It wasn't about numbers. It wasn't even about technology. It was about will. The XL Vorans had ruled through fear. They had crushed species who dared resist. But humanity didn't break. Humanity didn't kneel. "Open a channel," Jack ordered. The communication officer nodded. Across the fleet, every human soldier, pilot, and captain heard his voice. "This is it. The moment the galaxy remembers who we are. The XL Vorans think they can break us. They think they can wipe us out. They think they can erase our existence from the stars. They are who to our own. We are humanity. We are the impossible. We are the ones who fight when others surrender. We are the ones who win when others lose. They call themselves rulers. Today, we show them they are nothing." A thunderous roar filled the comms as soldiers cheered. Pilots shouted. Captains slammed their fists on their consoles. Jack turned to his crew. "Weapons hot. All ships, prepare for battle." The XL Voran Grand Armada arrived. And humanity charged. The first clash was cataclysmic. Explosions lit up the void as human warships ripped into enemy lines. Fighters weaved through the chaos, cutting through alien squadrons. Asterisk missiles, plasma bolts, railgun slugs. Asterisk, the battlefield became a storm of destruction. But the XL Vorans weren't just any enemy. They had ruled the stars for centuries. Their warships were monstrous, their firepower devastating. Human ships exploded. Soldiers died. The Empire was trying to grind humanity down, to drown them in fire and death. But the humans didn't stop. With every ship lost, they pushed harder. With every fallen soldier, they fought fiercer. The XL Vorans thought they were fighting an enemy. They didn't realize they had awakened a storm. Jack watched as his fleet tore through the impossible. The XL Voran dreadnoughts, so feared across the galaxy, fell one by one. Their formations collapsed. They hesitated. And in war, hesitation meant death. The U.S. Resolute punched through the enemy flagship's defenses, guns blazing. The XL Voran High Commander tried to send a retreat signal, but it was too late. Humanity had them exactly where they wanted them. Jack gave the final order. "All ships, END them." The fleet unleashed hell. When the battle was over, the XL Voran Grand Armada was no more. Their empire had lost its might. Its rule shattered. The terror they had spread across the galaxy was gone. Jack stood on the bridge, watching the wreckage drift in space. Humanity had done the impossible. They had faced extinction, and they had won. The war was over. But as Jack looked out into the endless stars, he knew one thing for certain. Humanity was just getting started.